Hey, welcome back to the City Rev Life podcast. My name is Robey. This is Rebekah, and we are in a series called Healthy Conflict in Marriage, and basically talking about the main premise being that in marriage, it is the ultimate iron sharpening iron. God is using us in marriage to make something, to bring the best version of ourselves out. And so conflict is not a sign that things are going wrong. Right. Conflict is a sign that God is at work, and we want him to be at work in our lives. And so really in this series, this is the second series we've done, kind of the part 2 series. And really in this series, we've been really focusing on the communication dynamics because, man, there's enough to disagree about and work through. We don't want to also add poor communication or miscommunication or communication misfires into the mix to add more conflict. And so in this particular episode, we're going to be talking about paraphrase. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yep. Paraphrase is one of those active listening skills that's so simple, yet has such a great impact positively in any conversation. It doesn't even need to be a conflictual one. So it's a highly effective communication tool. No matter who it's with, your children, your boss, your friends, your coworkers, but especially with your spouse and in the context of marriage. So we're going to look at how paraphrase can be used in the conversation to keep us in that frontal lobe that we've been talking about. It's a grounding technique to keep us in that good part of our brain that has good reasoning skills, good judgment, good flexibility and adaptability in times of stress. But it doesn't do just that. It also can carry us from the stress center part of our brain back to our frontal lobe when we find that we've been triggered or those misfires, like you were saying, are happening. And now we're talking stress center to stress center as opposed to the good frontal lobe to our spouse's good frontal lobe. So it can really safeguard and keep that for each other and for ourselves and keeping us in that good space, but also carrying us along that pathway that we're wanting to build back to that frontal lobe where we're wanting to stay.
Yeah. And this one practical communication idea, if you employed this in your parenting, in your friendships, with your rest of your family, parents, with cousins and siblings, I mean, at work, dealing with a disgruntled employee or disgruntled boss, or disgruntled customer, it can be used. This is such a powerful one practical practice. It's so powerful, but of all places, we should most want to practice this in marriage. And so if this one simple practice that we're going to talk about in this episode, if you use this, and it's super easy, super simple, if you use this, this could be a real game changer in your communication with your spouse. Let's just jump into a passage of scripture that I think speaks to this. It's Proverbs 15:14. And there are so many Proverbs on this basic subject, but here's what it says. The heart of him who has understanding seeks knowledge, but the mouths of fools feed on folly. And so the basic premise, and you see this again and again and again in scripture, but especially the book of Proverbs, is that the more wisdom and understanding and knowledge one has, the more they seek wisdom and understanding and knowledge. It's actually the position of foolishness to think, I don't need more knowledge. I don't need to operate and with curiosity around me. It's foolishness to assume you've got all the knowledge you need. That is the basic premise of wisdom that we're talking about with paraphrasing, because it's really ensuring that you understand and ensuring that the other party knows that you understand. So walk us through, how does this play out in our communication? Walk us through paraphrasing.
Sure. So paraphrasing is essentially just putting in your own words what you hear the other person saying. So it's not importing your opinion, but it's simply just restating in your own words what you're hearing the other person saying. That can sometimes be difficult because sometimes the person is talking for a very, very long time and maybe is giving lots of points and lots of examples. And so maybe you're just wanting to pick one thing, saying, okay, that was a lot. Let me just start with this one thing that I think I'm hearing you correctly. Maybe start with the thing that you feel like you do have a good grasp on or understanding of. So it's just restating that in your own words. Sometimes it's also kind of taking that skill to the next level or the next step is in also attaching an emotion to it, saying, so this is what happened and that makes you frustrated. Or when this happens, it's really irritating to you. And being able to pair an emotion of what that experience is like for that person when that circumstances surfaces. That doesn't mean that you agree, but you're just simply stating it and putting it in your own words, reflecting back to the person what you think you hear them saying. And so then the last kind of skill that you can wrap up the paraphrase is a check-in question. So after you repeat what you think you hear them saying, maybe adding an emotion of, and it seems like that really frustrates you or irritates you. Did I get that right? That check-in question kind of kicks it back over to our spouse, the person who's speaking, and being able to say, okay, now your turn. Did I get that right? And you're inviting and you're receiving feedback, hopefully not criticism, but hopefully some real honest feedback. Say, yes, this, and this, I really feel like you got correct, but this isn't so much what I'm experiencing or feeling. It's this. Oh, okay. So tell me more about that. So that check-in question really makes it a volley, that volleyball, that dialogue back and forth, rather than a one-person sided conversation.
Yeah. And again, you think about that in any context. It's a frustrated employee. They come in and this, and then this, and then this. It's like, okay, well, here's what I'm hearing you say. It sounds like X, Y, and Z, and this is how this is impacting you. Did I get that right? Or it can be a teenager, oh, Dad, you always do this and this, and you never let me do this. It's like, okay, well, here's what it sounds like you're saying. It sounds like you're saying X, Y, and Z. Did I get that right? But especially in marriage, not making the assumption that like, yeah, I got it, but stopping and restating it, and then saying, and this is how it made you feel, and then asking the question. Sounds like the three components are restating in your own words, restating the emotion that person's trying to convey, and then asking the follow-up question.
Correct. Absolutely. And that's so important because all three components of that, now that's a lot. That's a big definition. It's a simple skill, and you just modeled it multiple times just right there. But it's highly complex. It's a highly complex skill because you're taking content, you're taking emotions, and then you're, through that check-in question, creating space for exploration and more feedback. But here's why that's so important. Research shows that in regular communication, only about 30% of content is really digested by the listener. So that means that there's about a 70% distortion rate between two individuals. When you add stress into the mix or emotions in the mix, I would argue that distortion rate gets even greater. So we're having to overcome a lot of obstacles, a lot of noise, if you will, that's interrupting our ability to process and truly listen to what the other person is saying or intending to say. So we have to take ownership of our own noise in our minds and our brains, our biases, our filters that can tend to cloud or color things that aren't necessarily there. So that skill and breaking it down to those three levels really helps to kind of clear the waters that sometimes get muddy in just natural, common, everyday communication. But it's also important too that your nonverbals, which we talked about in the last episode, matches what you're saying. Being able to match your exploration and what you're saying with a tone and with a body language that says, hey, I'm available, I'm open, I'm here, and what you say matters to me is really going to create a highway of communication that I think we ultimately want.
Yeah, what I'm hearing you say, Rebekah, is that
good paraphrasing.
that you can paraphrase, but your nonverbals can be shutting down that person. So you can be like, you're like, well, here's what I'm hearing you say. It's like, well, all of a sudden, that's that might be escalating the issue rather than diffusing it. And I think this is just such good wisdom, because maybe you've heard this phrase before. This is something that we talk about within our staff and within our family. But the wisdom of seeking to understand before you seek to be understood. Mm-hmm. And there's so often that even just in a meeting, like at work, or between anybody at school, there's often times where if someone's trying to get their point across, there's all these miscommunications. And sometimes you can watch it between the two of them. Oh, this person thinks they mean that, and this person mean that. If someone would just stop and clarify, then we would have a productive meeting. And so we would have a productive time here. And so this is practicing seeking to understand before you seek to be understood, or just proverbial wisdom. Someone who has wisdom and knowledge and understanding is seeking understanding. Mm-hmm. They know that if I continue assuming I understand, I don't want to assume. Okay. If I'm assuming I understand, I know that could lead me into foolishness. Yeah. And a lot of times what happens in conversations, someone might say, yeah, I get it. Mm. And they're saying, I understand. And that's fine that you think you understand, but stop and ask yourself with wisdom, do I really understand? I want to check and make sure I understand. So it's not enough to be, yeah, I got it. I understand. I know what you're saying. Yeah. But secondly, it's fine if you really do. Maybe you really do understand. That person doesn't know that you understand. Mm-hmm. And so it's actually to de-escalate the conversation and to get everyone back to the frontal lobe, so to speak. What's important is that the person you're talking to truly believes you understand. And the only way that you can do that is to pause and to model and demonstrate that you understand by paraphrasing it in a calm, collected way. Mm-hmm. And I think that helps both parties say, okay, we're all on the same page. Yes. Or no, actually, that's not what I mean. And then you can get to a place where there is understanding and build on top of that in the conversation. And so I think we should probably model. I think we should probably model this.
We probably should.
Okay, so let me create a conflict. Oh dear. Let's say
we have not practiced this.
Let's say that it is. Let's say that it's pizza toppings. Oh dear. And so I'm gonna. I'll just launch into a conflict.
This is a regular conflict in our home, right?
Yes. No. We love pizza. We do love pizza. And really this would only not be a conflict because I love all types of pizza. So let's pretend I don't, and I'm very particular. Okay. Rebekah, I can't believe that once again you brought home this pizza. Look at it. It's just cheese. How am I supposed to eat just cheese? I wanted pepperoni, and I wanted green peppers and olives, and yet once again, you don't care about, it's all about you, what kind of pizza you want, and you just wanted the cheese.
Oh, okay. Wow. I'm realizing here that you're kind of stressed. Let me make sure I understand.
What are you saying? You're saying that I'm stressed? I can't believe that. This is a big deal. I want my pizza toppings that I deserve. So I work hard in this life. I only ask for pizza toppings.
So what I'm hearing you say, because I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. What I'm hearing you say is, I came home with a cheese pizza, and that's not what you were wanting for your pizza tonight. You wanted more toppings like pepperonis and olives and
green peppers,
and you like more pizza toppings than what I ordered tonight, which was just cheese. Did I get that right?
Yes, and it made me very mad and feel forgotten.
So when I came home with the just cheese pizza, it made, not only did I not get what you wanted, it also communicated that I don't value what's important to you for dinner.
Yes, thank you. I feel so much better about my life, and I I like cheese pizza, and so thank you.
Well, thanks for communicating that to me. I'll definitely make sure that when we order pizza, that's a way I can value you. I'll take into account what you would like. But please know that when I ordered the cheese pizza, my intention was not to disregard you or, not value your thoughts or opinions. It was just a quick order on my way home from work.
And it's that easy. All conflict can be resolved just that quickly.
I wish it was, but yeah.
But at least that, obviously, conflicts are much more layered and nuanced. But you can hopefully see from just us modeling that that it simply serves as like a building block that you can then stand on when someone feels heard. And it may then need to be a chance for someone else to say, once someone's been heard, that's been dealt with, then they may have something that they need to say, and it's the other person's turn to paraphrase. And, it can be, it may seem foreign, but once it gets into the culture of a team, an organization, or especially a marriage, that should be the first. We want to have our best communication skills in our marriage. That's the most important relationship outside of our relationship with the Lord. And so we want to give our best. And it can be just as simple as, let me just take a second and paraphrase what I'm hearing. I want to make sure I have that right. You can just say it. I mean, it's not like a mystery what you're doing. You can say something simply as like, hey, this is what I'm hearing. Let me see if I got this correctly, or let me just make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying. And then you launch into it and then ask for clarification at the end. And also something that we can elicit in each other as well.
I was just going to say, letting that skill be a part of your rhythm as a couple, hopefully doesn't feel condescending, but it can really be, hey, this is a tool that we've agreed upon is really helpful. So being able to say, if you're the one speaking, you feel like, I can't get over this hump, or I'm doing that thing where I'm saying my point over and over again, getting in a rut, that fight, flight, or freeze part of your brain's taking over, eliciting that paraphrase response from your spouse. Like, do you mind just paraphrasing for me what you're hearing me say? Because I think I'm talking in circles. And I think the reality is I just need to know what you're hearing me say, eliciting that from your spouse. And as on the receiving end of that, being able to say, look, that's part of the ground rules that we as a couple have laid in our marriage. And seeing that's my spouse cueing me, hey, let's get ourselves back to that frontal lobe. Because there's ways that we can do it, and you can feel like it's condescending. And I don't think the intention behind that is to be condescending. It's genuinely meant to be like, hey, this is our way of stopping, timing out for a little bit. Let's employ this technique that we're learning, that we're still perfecting, and getting ourselves back to that place. So
and I think it can feel condescending if you're eliciting the paraphrase if you don't use an I statement. In one of our previous episodes, we talked about using the power of using I statements. And so I think if you say, look, I don't think you understand, can you tell me what you're hearing me say? Like, that's going to put someone on the defensive, and that's not an I statement, but take ownership of it. Say something like, hey, I'm not sure I'm communicating correctly. Just own it. Like, I want to make sure that I'm communicating myself clearly. What are you hearing me say? Do you mind just repeating back what you're hearing me say? You can even do that with a child and be teaching a child how to paraphrase. Hey, buddy, we're talking about this, or hey, sweetheart, I want to make sure that I've communicated you clearly. What are you hearing me say? That can even be done in any context. At work, it can be used with a team that you're a part of or that you're leading. But especially, we would want to especially use that within the context of our marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. And that'll just bring us right back to that frontal lobe part of our brain. And when our spouse has to put in their own words what they hear us saying, that also requires that frontal lobe skills. You can't do that from the stress center part of your brain. And so it gets you both back into speaking from that good, healthy part of your brain that will ultimately yield that good communication. So I hope this skill has been helpful for you. I hope that you're able to digest it, introduce it to your marriage, employ it in lots of different contexts, but especially with your spouse. And we hope that this continues in your journey as you leverage conflict for your marriage, and hope you join us next time on the podcast.
Thank you for joining us on City Rev Life. You can subscribe to this podcast, rate and review wherever you're listening to this. And we love it when you share it with your friends on social media. For more videos and content, go ahead and check us out at cityrev.org/podcast or download our City Rev Church app. Have a great day.